Alright, continuing the tier list series, and today we're talking about vote, and the reason why you want to do this is because you mainly want to focus on one element, but I want to go ahead and disclaimer myself because you may find characters higher or lower on this tier list depending on your situation, but at the end of the day, this is my opinion. So let's go ahead and talk about the playstyle of vote to where I'm mainly basing my rankings off of. So Rei can be a main DPS or an amazing support. As a main DPS, you're mainly just trying to have over 70 energy so that way you can enter energy consumption mode, and to do that, all you have to do is do a normal attack and hold down the attack button. And the main way to get energy is by doing her skill and discharge. As a support, you need to have 100 energy and then switch to a different weapon. So let's go ahead and start this off by talking about the standard characters, and the first one being Samir, and sadly I have to rate her as a D. Unfortunately, almost all the characters on this tier list are just stronger than she is. But when it comes to utility, I have to rate her as an A because she is amazing when it comes to events to where you have to shoot something at a long range. Bringing us to her matrices to where her 2-piece gives you a 20% final damage buff. The only problem is that it has a stacking mechanic, but this is easy to accomplish as long as they're on your main DPS. Whereas her 4-piece really only benefits herself, but due to how strong her 2-piece is, I have to rate these matrices as an A. Bringing us to Crow to where I'm gonna have to rate him as a B. To where starting out he can be used as a main DPS, but in the late game he is an amazing buffer. To where if you can get him to 5-star, you can get a 100% crit chance for 4 seconds. And if you have Mimi's trait active and you're running triple vote, this can last for 29 seconds. On top of that, his 6-star gives you a 20% vote damage boost. Bringing us to his matrices to where his 2-piece increases your crit damage by 60% as long as the target's health is under 50%. But to really take advantage of these matrices, you need to have 75% crit rate or more. So due to that fact, it's usually better to use Shiro or Scylla matrices, with Lyra matrices beating them all. To where his 4-piece is okay compared to others, so I'm going to go ahead and rate these matrices as a B. Which brings us to Nemesis, and I'm going to rate her as a C. The main reason being is because Brevey exists, and she's just better than Nemesis in every way. On top of that, her main benefit is that she's a healer, and other healers are just better. Plus, to really take advantage of her kit, you mainly want to try to get her to 6-star, which is really not that worth. And sadly, this is the same for your DPS team, to where there's just better options. Bringing us to her matrices to where her 2-piece only increases your vote attack if you're being healed, while her 4-piece requires her to be on the team. Due to this fact, I'm going to have to rate these matrices as a D. Which brings us to Tian, to where I'm going to rate him as a B. When it comes to main DPSing, he's not that great due to the fact that he's going to need healing to stay alive, and you're going to need characters like Nemesis to do that. But he really shines when it comes to supporting due to his skill and if you're able to get higher star ascensions. Bringing us to his matrices to where his 2-piece are pretty good since it has a chance to trigger chain lightning, while his 4-piece is okay since it just gives a small vote damage boost. Due to this fact, I'm going to go ahead and rate these matrices as a C. Which brings us to Fenrir, and I'm going to rate her as a B. Due to the fact that she's strictly a main DPS and she does not work well with the upcoming characters besides Rubilia. Also, ideally you want to try to get her to 1-star so that way you can fully unlock her kit, with 3-star being a big damage increase. And if you're able to get her to 6-star, you increase the entire team's crit chance for a limited time, which is further increased with Mimi's trait as long as you're using triple vote. But one benefit that she can bring to your account is if you try to run a rainbow team, because she has the strongest trait. Which brings us to her matrices to where her 2-piece are actually very strong by increasing the team's crit damage, to whereas her 4-piece is okay since it slightly increases the final damage. And there are quite a few limited matrices that beat that out. So I have to rate these matrices as an A. Which brings us to Rubilia, and I have to rate her as a D. Rubilia desperately needs Fenrir on the team, and she has to be at A3 for you to take advantage of Rubilia's kit. On top of that, most of her power is in her skill, and for you to reach the maximum damage, her spikes need to constantly be healed, and the only way to do that is for Rubilia to be A5 or you to have an A1 Mimi. But when it comes to utility, I have to rate her as an S, because if you just have one copy of her on the account, you're able to fly very long distances throughout the world. Also, when it comes to Pokemon capture, having that one copy is useful as well. Which brings us to her matrices, where her 2-piece greatly increases your vote attack, where her 4-piece increases your elemental damage and increases the number of spikes that you can have on the field. So I'm going to rate these matrices as an A. Bringing us to Mimi, to where I'm going to rate her as an A, to where even at 0-star, she's very strong due to her simplistic playstyle and long-range capabilities. But each star level greatly increases herself and her team's capabilities. Her 1-star increases her normal attack damage and heals summons like Rubilia's Thorns. Her 3-star is her strongest ascension, allowing her to be an amazing support by decreasing all vote weapon skill cooldowns and increasing their vote damage. And her 6-star gives a boost to the team's vote and final damage. But when it comes to utility, I have to rate her as an S due to her tanking capabilities, because she's able to move and taunt enemies at long range while also providing shields for her teammates. And if you get her to 5-star, she protects the team even more. Bringing us to her matrices to where her 2-piece increases the final damage while also increasing the team's skill damage. And her 4-piece increases elemental damage, and if she is on the team, it also increases the team's crit damage. So I'm going to go ahead and rate these as an A, but I will say that these are better than Rubilia's. Which brings us to Brevey, and I'm going to rate her as an S. Now, she is an amazing main DPS and healer. As a main DPS, she is very strong due to her very powerful hold attack. But ideally, you want to try to get her to 1-star so that way you can heal while doing the hold attack. And if you get her to 3-star, all the team's Vote and Frost damage is further increased by 10% against bosses. 5-star slightly increases her off-field damage, and 6-star gives another Vote damage boost. But where she really shines is her healing, taking advantage of her bestie system. Because once you have 1-star, you have access to a very strong healer, to where she can heal her team simply by hold attacking. And she can reduce the damage that your bestie takes and prevent them from dying. And if you get her to 3-star, you get an extra use of her skill, and it increases the healing capabilities. And if you're able to get her to 6-star, you increase the team's final damage and shatter capabilities. Bringing us to her matrices, which are actually pretty powerful. Her 2-piece increases the elemental damage, and it's very easy to activate by casting a skill or discharge. And if you're a healer, these are really good by greatly increasing your healing capability. Her 4-piece are what really make these matrices very strong. If you're not in benediction mode, you get a major attack increase. And if Brevey's in the team, you get a slight final damage buff. But if you are in benediction mode, you greatly increase the attack of your teammates. So I have to rate these matrices as an S. Bringing us to the newest vote character, Rei, and I have to rate her as an S due to the fact that she is a decent main DPS and an amazing support. Now Rei can function perfectly fine at A0, especially for main DPSing, but our ascensions are a nice boost in damage, with her A1 greatly increasing your off-field damage, A3 increasing the team's Vote and Frost damage, A5 being a nice quality of life allowing you to get energy much easier, and her A6 allowing you to get another boost in Vote and Frost damage. And when it comes to main DPSing, she's not the strongest, but she's really only beaten out by Mimi or Brevey. So if you don't have either of those on your account, she's a great addition. And if you want to find out more about how her kit works, be sure to check out this video. Which brings us to her matrices, where her 2-piece does not only increase Vote and Frost damage, but it also decreases the target's resistance to it. Where her 4-piece greatly increases the final damage, and if she is on the team, your Vote and Frost attack is increased as well. All of this combined makes these the strongest Vote matrices, so I have to rate these as an S. So now let's talk about the buffing element altered, starting with Lin, and I have to rate her as a D. As I said, she's mainly a buffer, but she does not bring much to the Vote team. On top of that, you really want to try to bring her to 6-star to bring out her full capabilities, which I don't recommend. But when it comes to utility, I'm going to rate her as a C because she can be helpful in modes like Altered Sequential. Which brings us to her matrices, where her 2-piece increases your attack, but it does have a stacking mechanic, so it can be difficult to keep up. To where her 4-piece increases your final damage, but it has a stacking mechanic. Lin has to be on the team, and you have to be inside her field. Due to all these constraints, I'm going to rate these as an F. Bringing us to Fiona, and I have to rate her as an A. Even at 0-star, she's still a great buffer for the team, due to her scatter techniques like Maelstrom, Hydro Focus, and Wellspring, which can be a big damage boost for the team. Plus, her stars are really strong as well, with 1-star increasing the team's final damage, and 3-star allowing you to execute targets once they reach a certain HP threshold. But when it comes to healing, I have to rate her as an S because you're able to execute targets at a higher HP threshold as long as you're in benediction mode. Bringing us to her matrices, to where her 2-piece greatly increases your attack, but it is conditional, but it is very easy to activate, to where all you have to do is just attack with the character that they're attached to. Her 4-piece greatly increases your final damage as long as you use one of Fiona's scatter techniques, which is very easy to do as long as she's on the team. Due to that fact, I'm going to go ahead and rate these matrices as an A. But for my healers out there, I'm going to go ahead and rate these matrices as an S, due to the fact that she also increases the team's final damage as long as you're in benediction mode. And with her being one of the best healers in the game, she's not going anywhere anytime soon. Bringing us to Nan Yin, the newest altered character added to the game, and I have to rate her as an S. As long as she's in your team, she increases the team's damage by 15%. On top of that, when switching from a Vote weapon to Nan Yin, she now does Vote damage, allowing you to take full advantage of your gear. And her skill can do a lot of damage based off the damage that you're able to output while the skill is active. Also, her discharge allows you to do additional AoE damage, but this did get nerfed, so most of the time you're going to jump cancel this. And when it comes to utility, I have to rate her as an S as well, due to the fact that she's able to inhibit weapons even if she's not on the team, increasing that weapon's damage. And if you get her to 1-star, this damage further increases for every star that you have on that weapon. And if that wasn't enough, she has the ability to put portals on the map, allowing you to teleport to hard to get to places, with her further stars increasing your team's damage, and 5-star allowing you to put more portals on the map. Which brings us to her matrices, to where her 2-piece greatly increases your attack, and it allows you to get a free discharge at the start of the battle. These are so powerful, it's basically like having Lyra matrices in the background. And her 4-piece greatly increases your final damage, and it also increases your crit damage as long as she's in the team. Due to how strong these are, I have to rate these as an S. Which brings us to Zeke, and I have to go ahead and rate him as an A, due to his supporting capabilities, because if you activate his skill, you're able to increase the main slot's weapon's damage by 30% due to Serpent Chain, which is further increased by 50% if you're able to get him to 6-star. And when it comes to utility, I have to rate him as an S because you're able to instantly execute mobs even if you have one copy on your account. Bringing us to his matrices, which does not do anything for Vote, so I would pass on these. Bringing us to you now, to where I'm going to have to rate her as a B, due to the fact that she does not really do much for the Vote team besides a small buff. And to really bring out her capabilities, you really want to try to have her higher ascensions. But if you have a low star Mimi and a low star Yanuo could beat out Mimi. bringing us to her matrices, which are very powerful. Her 2-piece gives a nice boost in Vote and Frost damage, and it gives a small boost in Vote and Frost attack, where her 4-piece greatly increases the elemental damage, and if she is in the team, you get a boost in final damage. But even if she is not in the team, these matrices are stronger than Brevey's, so I have no choice but to rate these as an S. So here you can see the rankings for all the characters and matrices that I mentioned, so hopefully this will help you when picking a character for the vote team. And some might wonder why I redid the vote tier list. Rei is a special collab character and she may not come back. So I wanted to show you how she affects all the other characters in the vote team so that way you can make the best decision before she goes away. And moving forward, I will update these tier lists based off the new character, so the next tier list will be Flame. And let me know down in the comments if you agree with my tier list. But other than that, I'll talk with you guys later.